So welcome back everybody, my name is Paul again, and I've been talking about the last few videos I've made about other beings and whether there's consciousness expresses itself in different ways throughout the cosmos. And I've been giving my opinion and information based on books I've read and studies I've made about esoteric cosmology and so on for the last 45 years or so. And I want to talk a little bit about that, the source of my information, because I'm going to talk a lot about it in detail and where my source is. I've read a lot of books. There's a long tradition in Hindu culture, and I was born in India and had a exposure to a lot of different experiences and travels and met some very interesting people. And I have formed my own feelings about the subject that we're talking about here, of avatars, over just my own observations and feelings and my research and studies of ancient texts and so on. So I want to talk about a little bit. It's very, very complicated because the word avatar has a very strange meaning today. Basically the idea comes from that movie and popular knowledge and so on about what avatar means. It just means some kind of a representation, you might say. So you might say, well, you know, I have my avatar and it looks like X or whatever, and da-da-da-da, and like that movie Avatar. But the idea of the avatar comes from a very, very, very long time ago, and it's very complicated, and it's not as simplistic in any way as you know, it's made out to be. So I just thought I'd try to educate people a little bit and refer to some very interesting books. For one thing, there's a book I referred to in some other videos called The Treatise on Cosmic Fire, and this was done 1,200 pages or so with an index long ago in the early part of the last century by some British women who had gone to India and made contact with some Tibetan and Indian teachers. And the concept of a teacher in America is very foreign in a way, especially in Western culture. But the fact is that if you look at the ancient tradition, we've had thousands of examples of incredible human beings that have been on this earth, including people like Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton and Bach and Mozart and Beethoven. I mean, there's just a long list, and they had their effect on the different populations in which they lived and the type of thing that they brought into. And the whole concept of avatars I'm going to talk about starts with kind of a small grouping. That one book, this book I referred to, Cosmic, Solar, Interplanetary, Planetary, and Human. And basically they all represent a ray, or there's 7 official rays, in the way that the particular frequency bands that interact in a certain way and the combinations. But a cosmic avatar might represent a very, very powerful demonstration of one particular frequency. And the cosmic avatar is something that we would actually encounter. It would be like on such a high level that it affects the whole solar system, you might say, but a stream of energy that may even affect the whole galaxy or whatever. But it's not something that we normal people on this earth deal with. So then there's the solar. The ancient tradition for a long time was the space as an entity and all the different objects, especially objects like suns and stars and energetic presences in this cosmos, is a representation of some kind of a consciousness on such a vast scale that maybe we don't comprehend it. But from a point of view of an ant, they can't comprehend us either. So in the whole concept of Indian and Hindu and the Vedic tradition was that there's just a whole spectrum of beingness, and there are different incarnations, you might say, or embodiment of an energy for a purpose. Now there's different kinds. For example, they might come and anchor an energy, like say the avatar Jesus was supposed to have anchored love onto the planet in a particular way and brought a certain particular ray, which they call the second ray of love and wisdom. And then there's various exchange of energy, so that, let's say, Krishna says the Hindu deity Krishna says, well, when the times are rough on the earth and people have no respect for human life and evil has gotten out of hand, then I come, my presence comes onto this planet and, basically kicks butt, So that's the concept. See, it gives a lot of faith and hope for a lot of people because, many people realize that the Jewish people are expecting Messiah, the Christian people are expecting a return of Messiah, and the Buddhists talk about different incarnations, and same with the Muslims. So there's always this idea that there's going to be an incarnation or an embodiment of energy to re-stimulate and get people away from the scriptures and get them into a real experience. And that's part of the consciousness expansion. The whole purpose, beyond our understanding and our little understanding that we have in our little lives, the ancient people who went into a deep state of consciousness and practiced meditation for their whole lives and so on, and observed human nature. They observed and they discussed and they transmitted the information down for thousands and thousands of years, and they said, look, this is a natural process here, way beyond our little lives we have. There's a process of evolution that involves our consciousness. And it involves the whole solar system, and there's different kinds of beings. We'll get into that later, but apparently the ancients said, and there's just because some being might not have this particular water body, doesn't mean that it might not be some beings that have like silicon or some other kind of basis, or they don't need water or whatever. There could be a whole different expression. We know that there's a lot of different species on this earth, and they all have consciousness. So, as far as how it expresses itself, now when it comes down to interplanetary, which beings that are on other planets that come within the system and exchange energy from planet to planet, and then there's the human. And you have to say, like some of these great teachers, there's such a long list of them. We're kind of an avatar. They brought a kind of an energy, they anchored it, and it has a lot. The process of the solar process involves initiation. So just like we go through an expansion of consciousness, we try to think about it for a minute. We have to think, what if consciousness expanded for millions and millions and millions of years? And here we are. We don't know how long the human race has been here, really, and we have a short life. We try to figure out, okay, well, what if consciousness just went on for millions and millions and millions and millions of years? What would a human being look like? What would a being look like? What kind of body would they have? Where would they go? What kind of travel would they do? Would they have less ears or smaller nose or no hair? Or what would happen? So in the cosmos, the ancients and the tradition that have been given to down centuries has been that it's all about a consciousness evolution from the microcosmic to the macrocosmic, from the atom all the way up to the suns and the galaxies. They all go through this internal, endless process of transformation. And what that does is it gives all kinds of beings a way to participate, because it's kind of like there's a beautiful drama going on and it never ends. And there's new participants all the time, and each one contributes. So it's like the cosmos keeps growing and growing and growing, because human beings are various beings, you might say, evolve, and they come into different kinds of bodies, and they cycle, and the whole purpose of an avatar is just to teach. A purpose of an avatar, doesn't come like, okay, jump in the sky and say, okay, everybody's like, you ready to go? Let's go. Pack your bags. We're going up to heaven. It's not like that. It's sort of a lot of unfoldment of consciousness to say, okay, they can, I put in here, an avatar can be invoked. In other words, humanity and the beings on the planet, even the Earth being, the whole planet itself, there's pain, there's a change of vibration that invokes and attracts or brings into existence various avatars, sometimes by surprise. So like if the planet has a beingness, and there's a lot of other kinds of millions kinds of species on the earth, and they all have a collective beingness, breeding, all different kinds of animals and creatures, So there's a life force on this planet that you can call the whole summation of the whole planet. And when its circulation gets bad, just like a human being, when we don't feel good, we naturally sort of pray. We hunger, we draw into incarnation and manifestation the so-called avatars. Now, many of the avatars, they come to upgrade and simplify teachings and make it simple, because the whole purpose is, okay, let's say you're like a Buddha, and the Buddha said, okay, I don't want to leave this entire solar system until every being is blissful. So in one sense, such a being would be like, okay, there might be millions of years. But in the process, there's a whole lot of other beings that cooperate and participate in the process, so that eventually human beings can live at peace on this planet and the rest of the solar system. So basically, there's a whole interchange of energy going on, according to the tradition, in the solar system and in the galaxy, and the whole thing is just an evolution of consciousness. Now, an avatar may not always be on the physical plane. They may appear in the so-called spirit realm, like Jesus said, okay, I'm going to lend you my spirit. Okay, well, an avatar might say, okay, my physical body, I'm going to drop it here, but, after I'm gone, boom, there's just like a whole release. And that's a long Buddhist tradition. I mean, in a Buddhist tradition, wherever a great sage was, his last samadhi, his last meditation, they built a spire there, and it had a functional use. It's a beautiful spire, like a fire, a spirit. Say, okay, the Buddha, all these beings, they lived their life in a very disciplined way, and then they accumulate a tremendous amount of beautiful energy, and then they teach what they can, and then when they drop their body, they release something. And this is a beautiful part. There's many places in the world where the great teachers come and are left to release a beautiful energy in some of these sacred spots. Now, the teachings say that avatars are always present. There's modern avatars. There's never a time on this earth where there's not various different kinds of representatives. They may be unknown. They may be working in some obscure field. And the purpose of an avatar is not to get famous. There's a whole lot of other functions. For example, there's beings who might work more with the animal kingdom, or they might have a certain particular knowledge of math or whatever, and they contribute a particular narrow field and something particular. They make one particular discovery or something, and they may not be famous, or they just, like Tesla, for example. He was just like this guy, and at the end of his life, he was feeding pigeons, but, he left us a legacy. So there's a lot of people like that, and Tesla would probably qualify as a type of avatar. It's a natural part of the cosmic system that we are in, is the avataric system. And again, the system of so-called hierarchy comes in. Hierarchy is not a business hierarchy. In the hierarchy of oneness, all of us are just part of this whole oneness, and all our goal is just to expand, expand, expand. So if you participate in the expansion, then you have more knowledge and you have more understanding, then you have more responsibility. So if you have more responsibility, you have to teach, you have to make your energy flow. If you're a good musician, you can make some beautiful music. If you're a good singer, make some songs. Every being, the whole goal of every soul is to become like an avatar, each with a particular frequency and a particular fragrance and a particular contribution to the cosmos, and every single human being is important. So the whole concept of avatars is not meant to be like, okay, bow down everybody, there's the God, and you better serve or whatever. It's sort of appreciation of grace, of giving, of generosity, of sharing, of growing, the dance of life, learning to be part of the whole process, where we can benefit from various presences that have come on this planet. And there's so many of them. You just read their books, and there's so many. Here's one right here. He was a I think it was the late 1800s, Yukteswar. No, nobody, hardly anybody knew him at that time locally around, and people knew him, but he was a really, really great soul, and he had some very powerful things to say that we recorded and so on. So the beauty today is that we have the opportunity to look and find so many sources of incredible information and things that can trigger our own realization and understanding. But we have to be a little bit open to it, because the problem that, modern teachings, the God, the avatar, you better watch out. He's always watching. He's gonna smack you if you do something wrong or whatever. It's a shame that we can't be in this cosmic brotherhood of oneness where we just say, look, let's all embrace each other's growth and understanding so that we all elevate and float more. And I encourage people to look into some of these books and the whole concept of esoteric psychology, which involves the soul. If you don't have an understanding of the soul, something deeper, modern psychologists might call it the psyche, but it's actually, even that word gets all confused, but something deeper in a human being that is connected to the infinite deep cosmos, so that we can be we can be one of those beads on the thread of this beautiful garland. All we have to do is link our consciousness in. And when people say, well, there's nobody above us, or there's no avatars and no Mahatmas and no this and no that, well, they haven't experienced that. But if you just look around, everybody's a god or goddess in a way. Human beings are absolutely incredible. I've met some people in my personal life that I was just astounded at the kind of beautiful presence that they manifested, and seemed to be really, really profoundly aware. But there's no end to awareness. So we're all here to try to expand ourselves and, like a balloon, float upward and upward. So I hope I've given a little bit of clarity to the subject of avatars as an introduction, because I want to talk a little more about it, because I'm still doing my own research, and I refer back to books that I've read a long time ago and modern teachings and so on. And I listen, and I'm not trying to say, well, whatever I'm saying here is the truth, and accept it. What I do is encourage people, hey, look in this direction, experiment with these types of concepts and awareness, and look into it a little bit, and the answer that you'll get from deep inside when you reflect will be something that you feel comfortable with and never stop growing. So I appreciate all the good feedback, and I'll be looking forward to making a lot more videos. I want to expand the subject a lot more. Please like and share. I know I don't reach a huge number of people right now. I just put my 2 cents out there. But over time, I feel if I affect one person and make their life a little bit better and more conscious, then, as far as I'm concerned, that's beautiful. So thanks again for listening. Goodbye.